Do you see that there? That is our new sculpture that when you come into the museum, if you go up the stairs, you're greeted with it. And I am actually going to let my friend tell you about the sculpture. So, Peter, could you introduce ourselves to our friends here?
Yes, hi friends. I'm Peter. I'm the Vice President of Exhibits here at Chicago Children's Museum. And I have the good fortune of working with artists, designers, educators, community members, builders, tinkerers, to create interactive exhibits here at the museum. And here we have an interactive, hands-on exhibit consisting of a kinetic sculpture, a sculpture that moves. And it was built and created by Andrew Smith from Utah. Wow. In this exhibit, children, guests get to learn and play and explore physical science through these hands-on interactives. So why don't we take a look at some of these?
Yeah, I was hoping that maybe you could show us 3 different kinds of simple machines.
I'm sure I can. I know I can, and I maybe even more than that.
Yes.
Why don't we start with this? This is a wedge. Simple machines are devices that can do work and have little or no moving parts, and they make work easier. So this is a wedge. So a wedge works by pushing force that goes this way, and it separates and moves things this way. Let's take a look at one in the sculpture.
Very cool.
In the sculpture, you can see a wedge placed right here on this track, and our guests can interact by turning this hand crank and bringing the wedge forward. And while it does that, that front flat edge of the wedge is lifting the chain.
Ooh. Do you all see how that wedge is moving through as Peter turns the wheel?
That's a really big chain. It's kind of like a chain on your bicycle.
Yeah.
But much, much larger.
Yeah, definitely looks heavier than a bike chain would be. Oh, and you can turn it both ways. And it looks like, Peter, too, there's something happening below the chain when you do that.
Right. So this has a wedge in it, but it also has there's many simple machines throughout this sculpture, and some of them working together. Here you have what's known as a screw. It's a screw, or an auger screw specifically, and some screws, such as this one, has ridges that are on the outside, and this one, the auger screw, has the ridge that goes into the shaft. So that's something that's a little different.
Very cool.
So you have a combination of the screw and the wedge working together, along with a wheel to lift that chain.
All right. And then I think, too, there was another place that you were showing me earlier about the screw.
That's right. So the next thing we're going to look at is a way that guests can send billiard balls up into the sculpture.
Oh, let's look for the billiard balls, everybody. Let's find those really quick.
They're deep down inside there, and you can see a purple one straight across.
Okay.
And so when you turn this crank, it turns that screw and turns the gear, that gearbox, which is then fed through a belt and wheels and axles to lift the balls up the inclined plane. And an inclined plane is another one of those simple machines.
Oh, wow. Okay. So if you can see where that, I know it's maybe hard to see, but those billiard balls, if you can see that those are moving, and then there's also, I always want to forget the name of the second machine you tell me about, the screw. So there you see the screw moving. Oh, I like the sounds it's making. And now we can watch where these billiard balls are going.
Right, you can see force and motion happening. You can see inclined planes. An inclined plane is like a ramp that helps you bring things up and brings things down. Eventually the balls drop into the vortex and make their way around and get ready for the next guest.
Oh, wow. This is mesmerizing.
There are lots of things to look at and listen to and interact with in this kinetic sculpture. How about if we look at another one? So you have wheel and axle, but when you combine a wheel and axle with a rope, it becomes a pulley. And a pulley helps you lift something up heavy by using gravity by pulling down on the rope. When you combine pulleys, it becomes a block and tackle, and it makes the work even easier. You know, if you're trying to lift something that weighs 100 pounds and you have multiple pulleys, the amount of force is greatly reduced. Let's look at this. This one is here to lift this heavy ship's chain up and down. Let's take a look at a piece of that chain over here.
Whoa, that is massive.
It's quite heavy. It would be on a ship, so an anchor up and down. And it is.
Yeah.
Here,
get your workout just lifting that, huh?
Here we have the wheel, so a block and tackle, a set of pulleys, and with a little bit of force from me, I'm able to lift it straight up.
Oh, that looks so much easier. That's really incredible that super heavy chain that you just lifted, now with the aid of a simple machine, the pulleys, you can lift it so much more easily. Look at that. And look how fast you're able to go too. So we've now learned about 3 simple machines, and there's more in this sculpture too, right? Than just the 3?
Yeah, well, we talked about a wheel and axle in the pulleys. Here you can see a very large wheel and axle.
Yes.
So the wheel here that came from irrigation system out in the western states, United States, wheels lessen the amount of friction in order to move something. So this wheel's moving around. It's tied to that piece of a tricycle up there. And on this large wheel is what's known as a cam that takes circular motion and turns it into vertical motion. It's about to bump up on the wheel.
Yeah, if you all look really closely, the wheel isn't perfectly smooth. See at the top, as it's coming towards us, there's that's the cam that Peter was talking about, that bumps up that tricycle that, from what I understand, then moves that large billiard ball,
right,
looks
so
like.
And that's our next simple machine after that is the lever. A lever is a length of rod or whatever, different material. Here it's this little bicycle and this piece of sculpture, and there's a fulcrum so that you have a heavier weight on the left side, longer on the right, and the bump pushes it up on the fulcrum, and you have leverage.
Whew.
And we're watching that ball go back and forth.
So you earlier today were also telling me about your favorite part of the sculpture. Could you share your favorite part with me?
Sure, there's a lot of things I like about this. We really enjoyed working with Andrew to bring this here to our guests in Chicago. So, you know, and he has quite a collection of odd materials and pieces to use in his work. This piece I really like. It came from an old elevator. It's a big gearbox that was part of the elevator. So you can imagine the amount of work that machine could do with that large screw, the gears and sprockets that are all attached to that. And so it's quite fun to watch. Another thing that I really like about this sculpture is that, well, sculpture is art that you look at 3 dimensions.
Yes.
Right? You have your height, width, and depth. And you can walk around a sculpture and see it in different ways. And the placement of this sculpture is really unique because you can see it from all different sides in the museum. Should we walk around and look at
let's take a walk. That's the beauty, I think, of these virtual tours as well, is that we are able to move And I do want to take a moment to quickly apologize for my shaky camera skills. I am trying to hold steady, but I get so excited. It's so hard to be still. But here's another great angle.
Right, here we are at the top of our stairs that comes from floor 1 to floor 2. And you can see the large wheel over top of the stair attached to that steel beam and other parts. And we can walk further around and see it from the other areas of the museum. So here, you can walk around and see it from different angles, but you can also see it from underneath as you're coming up the stairs. You can actually see it from the staircase that goes up further, so you can see it from overhead. So really, more than just all the way around, you can see it from below and see it from overhead. So that's really exciting.
That is really exciting. And I also was wondering, does this sculpture have a name yet?
That's a good question. Andrew did not give us a name for his sculpture, and that's okay. And we were thinking that we would love to take suggestions from our guests, from people. And so we're going to be looking at a way soon to let everybody give us some suggestions of names that we can think about and come up with a name for this exhibit and for this sculpture. So I hope that maybe you'll have some ideas and you'll be able to contribute with that.
Yeah, and I just want to let our participants know today too that if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, just look up Chicago Children's Museum. We'll definitely let you know when we're in the process of picking a name, and that's when we'll really need your help, because I think this sculpture deserves a name that matches its awesomeness.
Yes.
And the last thing I'll ask before we move on to our daring climb is I was wondering how long this took to put inside the museum. What was that like?
Well, our friend Andrew Smith, he worked on this for many, many months. I think it was more than a year to create this for us. And we started planning for it even well before that. But then once he came here with the sculpture in different parts, we worked for 20 days straight, assembling it, making sure everything fit together right, it was tightened up well and looked good and worked well. And so yeah, it took a long time. And then we've been doing other work with it afterwards. But yeah, we worked 20 days straight with Andrew.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's been so exciting to see this new sculpture in our museum. And I cannot wait for our friends to come back to the museum so we can really see how our friends and families here play with it.
I feel the same way.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you so much, Peter, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us.